What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video, top 5 wide receiver steals, and this isn't just a list of players I like. Every player that I'm going to talk about today is being undervalued and is a player you should be targeting in every single one of your leagues. So, if you enjoy the video, then make sure to leave a like. It lets us know you appreciate the content and approve of what we're doing here. But let's start things off like we always do with the stat of the day. Yesterday's stat. Among running backs with at least 8 defenders in the box on at least 14% of the carries, who had the highest efficiency rating? The answer was Philip Lindsay. No one's gotten it yet, but still early, so still time. Today's stat. Among wide receivers with fewer than 50 receptions last season, who had the most drops? Alright, let's start talking about some wide receiver steals. And like with all these top 5s, unless they're ones that are specifically early or late, I try and find different players that are going at different portions of the draft. The thing is, there aren't any wide receiver steals in the first few rounds. That's not to say there aren't wide receivers I like or wide receivers I really like taking at their ADP, but no one in the first few rounds at wide receiver is a steal. And that sort of relates to the video I made this weekend about positional scarcity. There are a boatload of running backs that I want early that I think are values early in the draft, just not so much with wide receivers. There's a boatload of wide receivers I want in the middle and late rounds, so it just makes sense to go running back and tight end early and then to take your wide receivers in the mid to late rounds. The closest that I could get for an early round wide receiver steal was Amari Cooper, Brandon Cooks, and DJ Moore. I have all of them above ECR and ADP, just not by enough to call them steals. I do like their value though, so I wanted to mention them in the video. But the first player to actually make the list is Christian Kirk. By now you guys should know that I'm just all in on the Cardinals offense this season. The public always uses recency bias when drafting, so every single player on this team is a value. Because remember, we're drafting for 2019, not 2018. And since this is a completely different offense, we can't use last season to project going forward. I mean, last year, they ranked second to last in plays per game and dead last in points per game. The offense was absolutely dreadful, so it's not shocking that they didn't produce in fantasy. This season, they brought in Cliff Kingsbury to install the air raid offense. For those of you who don't know, that's a very good thing for offensive production. The Cardinals are going to be aggressive in stretching the field, and they will run as many pass plays as any team in football. As a rookie, Christian Kirk appeared in just 12 games before breaking his foot. He played in over 40 snaps in just 8 of those games. Kirk should see at least 40 pass snaps per game this season. Reports out of camp have been overwhelmingly positive, and he's expected to pass Larry Fitzgerald as the team's top option in the passing game. He's in line for a breakout season. I have him ranked as my wide receiver 26, 11 spots above ECR, 8 spots above ADP, and he also has my 24th highest projection among wide receivers. And if you want to see my full projections for all players, my rankings and player notes for them, you can check that out at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. But let's move on to player 2. And player 2 is Dante Pettis. And in his rookie season, Pettis was only healthy enough to play more than 40 snaps in 7 games. What was his pace for a full season on those 7 games? 55 receptions for 992 yards and 11 touchdowns. Obviously, the insane touchdown rate is going to decline, but it was nice to see he was able to put up some really solid numbers, especially considering who was throwing him the ball. I mean, Nick Mullins wasn't terrible, and he actually wasn't that bad. But that's more of a testament to the coaching staff than Nick Mullins' individual skill set. Kyle Shanahan is a fantastic coach, and he puts their offense in the best possible position to succeed. And now Jimmy G is back, and they brought in Tevin Coleman, and Breida should be healthy. Plus, Deebo Samuel is another weapon that defenses are going to have to worry about. If this offense can stay healthy, then I expect the 49ers to finish around 9 wins this season with a realistic shot at 10 wins and a playoff berth. San Fran ranked 22nd in points per game last season, and I expect them to be a little bit above league average this season. Pettis is my 26th ranked wide receiver, 5 above ECR, 8 above ADP, and has my 23rd highest projection. If you do out the target share for this offense, You've got to give some to the running backs, especially Tevin Coleman, and then you've got to give a good amount to Kittle. But once you're done divvying all that up, there is still a significant amount that will go towards the wide receivers, and a large portion of that is going to go to Pettis. So I absolutely love taking him at his current ADP. Another guy I love, Curtis Samuel. And people are scared of Cam Newton's shoulder, but there's no real reason to be. I mean, players come back from these injuries all the time, and every report indicates that he's going to be 100%. So unless we hear otherwise, unless it comes out, hey, he's actually not throwing, he actually still has some pain, unless we hear a report like that, we need to assume that he is 100%. Curtis Samuel suffered a few injuries in his rookie year and to begin his sophomore year, but when he returned, he looked fantastic. I mean, 88th percentile SparkX score, 62nd percentile breakout age, and a 100th percentile speed score. That's the kind of receiver that Curtis Samuel is. He's a former second-round pick, and the team didn't add any competition in free agency. So, the departure of Funchess means that Moore and Samuel are going to be every down wide receivers. Samuel commanded 8 targets per game over the final 5 weeks, was 14th in fantasy points per route run, 16th in fantasy points per target, and showed that he was able to run 10 different route combinations last season. He took major strides forward to improve his game after his rookie season, and he showed that to end last season. He's one of the youngest possible third-year wide receivers, and he won't turn 23 until the preseason begins. The fact that he was able to produce like he did last season at such a young age shows that he's going to be a great wide receiver in this league. He has absolutely everything working for him if he can stay healthy, and he's only going to cost you an 11th round pick right now. I mean, that's got to increase when people start to wake up to how good he is and how honestly good this offense is for fantasy production. But I mean, I've been taking him in the 9th round, and I'm still very excited about that ADP. It's the same kind of situation with Pettis. Go through the target share of this offense and divvy out, okay, you get this percent, you get this percent, you get this percent. There is still a ton left when you get to wide receiver, and realistically, it's Moore and it's Samuel, and it's really no one else. So he's going to get a lot of targets, and he's really nice because he gives you those end arounds. He gives you those designed runs. So when you look at the end of the season, you're like, oh, I mean, he only had like 100 and so odd rushing yards and like a touchdown there. Okay, but add that to his receiving. Add that to his receiving touchdowns. It's actually really big when a guy can give you potential for rushing, and it really raises their weekly ceiling. So I absolutely love him and sign off on him as a pick. 4th wide receiver we're going to talk about is Keke Coutee, and he is still going in that 10th to 11th round range, which is an absolute steal. He averaged 13.7 half PPR points per game and 7 receptions for 76 yards and 0.4 touchdowns in his healthy games last season. Remember, he was hampered by those injuries. When you look at the Texans roster, you have DeAndre Hopkins, a target monster. Give him 27% of the target share. Give him 28. I don't care. Give him a huge percentage. After that, you look at the running backs. You got Lamar Miller and Donta Foreman. Okay, well, that's honestly not that many targets going to those players. Look at their tight ends. Okay, that's not taking many targets either. So you're really left with Fuller and Coutee. And that's it, because they use their 3 wide receivers. They don't really go to their bench that much. Now you look at the fact that since Bill O'Brien took over in 2014, the Texans have ranked 9th, 1st, 6th, 13th, and 7th in plays per game, with that one outlier 13 being in the season that Watson tore his ACL. I mean, give Hopkins the massive target share, and then look at how much is left. It's a ton. If Coutee stays healthy this season, he's going to break out in fantasy. He's not an incredible athlete, I understand that, but he has an above average SparkX score, an above average agility score, and an extremely high speed score. He's a great slot receiver. I'm not saying he's ever going to be a number 1 outside wide receiver. That's not what he is. But he's a fantastic slot receiver, and he produced the 2nd most target separation per route among all wide receivers last season, and he had the 4th highest reception percentage from the slot. The hamstring injuries are a concern. They're a legitimate concern, and that's one of the injuries I always watch out for. If he pulls his hamstring in camp, he's coming off of my list of targets. But as of right now, he's being undervalued by the community. You always want to target high power offenses with a consolidated opportunity share. And when everyone's healthy, we know exactly where the targets are going in Houston. Coutee has that slot role on lockdown. And all of the things I just talked about is assuming that he doesn't take any strides forward in his second year. Because if he improves at all, he's going to be a mid-round pick next season. So take him before that happens. You always want to draft these players before they break out. There's no use in waiting. Be like, oh, well, I haven't seen it yet, so we're just going to wait a season. Oh, he showed me that he's really good this year. All right, now I'll draft him in the mid-rounds. No, you got to be ahead of the production, and that's what this video is about. It's about finding people before they break out. Because everyone I'm talking about in this video has a great opportunity to produce this season, but they're not being valued that way this year. But if they produce, they're going to be much more expensive next year, and even if they get a little bit better, they might not be as good of values. Always looking for values. So speaking of that, probably the biggest value on this list is DaeSean Hamilton. And when I first brought up DaeSean Hamilton in the video a few months ago, I believe, I figured his ADP was low because it was summer and no one was really paying attention. But the thing is, his ADP isn't moving, and if anything, it has dropped since that Emmanuel Sanders video came out. He's going in like the 13th, 14th, sometimes 15th round, depending on where you're drafting. Not in our mock drafts, when we do mock draft Monday, because it's all our subscribers, so everyone knows about DaeSean Hamilton because I keep beating the drum on him. But if you do a mock draft right now, he's going really late, and that's absolutely crazy. This kid broke out extremely early in college, even with target competition all around him. And at the combine, he graded out as an agile slot receiver. That's what he graded out as. Then as a rookie, while recovering from an MCL sprain, he was able to command 9.5 targets per game over the final 4 weeks, while gaining elite target separation per route, and showing that he is already an elite route runner at age 24. There are two main concerns that people have with DaeSean Hamilton. The one is Emmanuel Sanders, and if he opened the season on the PUP, then Hamilton's ADP would skyrocket. The thing is, Sanders is now 32, coming off a significant injury, so even if he starts, he's not going to be 100% to start the year, and he'll likely be moved to the outside to accommodate Hamilton in the slot. So honestly, I hope that Sanders is healthy to start the season, because then people are just going to write off Hamilton and assume, oh, he's not going to play. Nope, he's going to see the field even with a healthy Emmanuel Sanders. The second concern is his extremely low yards per target last season. I attribute a lot of that to the MCL sprain and Case Keenum being, pretty mediocre as a quarterback. And while not a big one, Joe Flacco is at least a small upgrade from Case Keenum, and he loves targeting slot receivers from 11 personnel. Ultimately, Hamilton is going to outperform his ADP regardless of what the health status is on Emmanuel Sanders. And if these videos keep coming out where Sanders looks amazing in his route running and everything, the public is going to jump off Hamilton completely. And that's exactly what we want to happen. Because realistically, Hamilton should be going in the 10th round regardless of what happens with Emmanuel Sanders. And if you told me Emmanuel Sanders opens on the PUP, he should be bumped into the 8th round. But assuming full health of Emmanuel Sanders, there's no way Hamilton makes it to the 10th round, but he should. So you should be targeting him in every single league. So those are the wide receivers whose ADPs are absolute steals right now. And as always, you can check out my latest rankings, projections, and players to target and avoid at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. But that's the end of this video. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting that like button? If you're new here, how about subscribing to the channel? But thanks for watching.